after the execution of the 13 people, he was taken to Belayala, I think. He and Wilfred Clark were in the same plane, and Wilfred Clark was saying, why are they taking me to Belayala? They made a mistake, they made a mistake. So my husband, anyway, he thought it was funny that this man would say they made a mistake. He was in charge of the security at the mansion. And my husband was wondering, why is this man telling me these things? But anyway, he went to Belayala, and he said when he got there, he had on some trousers. They took a razor and cut all the trousers on his body. They cut the leg of the trousers, and they gave him a short trousers out of that. And that's the pair of trousers he stayed in for about 15 months, or maybe close to that. But he said it was on the floor all the time. There were 15 to 20 in one room, barely could make it. The bucket would be full. People had to use the bucket in the room for a bathroom. But it's a long story and I cannot go into it. But people were beaten physically. Fortunately, I wasn't, and my sisters weren't. We were not raped. And I'm sure many people wanted to, but it didn't. God covered us, I'm telling you, and I believe he did. So I'll tell you a little bit of my experience, and just pieces to tell you my experience. When the coup took place, April 12th, I was home. My husband was called by my father to the mansion, and he went. And he, very brave man, he went. And all I knew, he came back and said, you have to leave right away. So I said, what? And then the telephone was ringing. Some of my sisters were saying the shooting at the radio station. I had to pass by the radio station, but I decided I would leave. And my marriage vow said you have to honor, respect, obey your husband. So I said I would. So I did. And he saved our lives because he kept saying, you got to leave now. Otherwise, anything happened, I won't be responsible. So I left. But just go back a little bit. 2 days before the coup, my husband and I realized that they had changed the guard. The soldiers, they didn't usually have a weapon with them. But this man, there was a new guard on post. That was I believe the Thursday we noticed that. And Friday was this big 100-voice choir because they were celebrating the centennial celebration of the Baptist church in Liberia. And we went to that. But this guard was there on Thursday. My husband said, I'm going to change him on Saturday. But this guy he had a gun on his side all the time. And my husband said, where's the old fellow? He said, they just changed us, But that night, my husband, because he noticed it was a different guy, when he came in the yard, he jumped over the fence to come and tell me to leave. And he said, be careful, but I will be trying to protect you all. So when we left the yard, I had to tell this man a story. I said, well, I'm just going for the weekend. He said, well, where are you all going this time in the morning? I said, well, because by then it must have been about 2 a.m. in the morning. The coup took place maybe an hour before then. Where are you going? I said, I'm going to my mother-in-law, but I'm going for the weekend. We always go for the weekends. But he was new, so he didn't know what I was saying anyway, but he knew I was leaving. And so I left. It must have been 3 hours, I don't know, but as I was leaving, I could hear the gunshots at the radio station. But do you know, once I got in the car, that was myself. I had a lady that was taking care of the children, Mary Smith. She was with us, and I had 6 children. I had 3 biological children and 3 other children I was caring for. The oldest one was a girl whose father worked with my father, and when he died, my father promised him that he would take care of her. So she came, before I even had my first child, she came to my house. So I took her as my child. Her name is Mary, and now she's a master's. She has master's in special education. She lives in Atlanta. And then I had my 3 biological children and 2, a niece and a nephew. So we all got in one car and we drove. I was petrified. Most of the children were sleeping. My youngest was 11 months. So I had to take these 6 children plus Mary to safety, and I was scared. So all I could tell them, Mary, let's pray. So we were praying, and we didn't see or hear a thing from the time I left my house until we got to Crossville. And I know they were fighting around. So this is why I know God took care of us. So when the coup took place, the next morning when I got to Bentonville, Bento then, some of my father's guards was outside his house because we had to pass his house to get to my mother-in-law's house. And they asked me, what happened to Monrovia? I said, I didn't know. They said, oh, we hear there's a coup. I said, well, I didn't know which side they were on, because as I told you, we know there were a lot of plots. But some people were in the government, in my father's cabinet. Vice President Benny wanted to say the information about the rights got out before they even made a decision. But, so I said, I didn't know. So he said, okay, I've forgotten his name now, but he said, okay, I said, I'm going to my mother-in-law's house. He knew my mother-in-law's house. He said, well, we'll take care of you. We'll be okay. I was saying, oh, I hope he doesn't take care of me anyway. But anyway, I went to my mother-in-law's house, and I stayed there that day. My mother-in-law, when I got there, she was awake. We got there about 5 a.m., and she said, I just woke up from a dream. She said, oh, there will be a lot of death. I said, oh, I think something is happening. They're shooting in Monrovia. I think there's a coup. She said, oh my God. But she said the meat, they were throwing meat to the dogs. There was so much meat. She said, oh, there's a lot of death. So 6 o'clock, we waited for the radio. It didn't come. 7 o'clock, Samuel Doe said the country belonged to a soldier, and everybody heard that news. So my first thought was, oh, I want to get my father's body, because my father always told me that he wanted to be buried right away. He was not afraid of death. I told him, every time my mother-in-law had those dreams, I went to him. He said, I know your mother-in-law. She sees things. God speaks to her in dreams. But he said, I'm not afraid of death. When my father became president, the day he swore in after Tubman's death, that evening he came and gathered his children together, and he said, I've educated all of you, and many of us, some of them were married. Many of us were married, he said. And he said, now I want you to realize that Liberia comes first. And God first, Liberia, and then you all third. And at first I was hurt. But then I realized what he meant, because he had given us the education. He told us, he said, whatever is in here, if you don't crazy, you will always have it. But material things you will never have. So get all your education. And so he told us that. So we knew that Liberia was first. And he really died for his country. So when he died, that's what I said, I couldn't cry. Because I cried the day he was sworn in as president, because I knew he would be killed. It's strange, because we see from history people who are selfless, gave themselves up, and people think that they're weak. They're not weak, because you're meek and humble doesn't make you weak. You're meek and humble because you're strong. And he was strong in God. So that day when they killed him, all I wanted was to get his body to bury him. So that's Saturday, I said, I'm going to find my father's body. I laugh now because I was foolish. I left my 6 children with Mary. Mary, she never went to school, but she had a heart of gold. And I left Mary with my children. And then, no, sorry. I told Mary, can you go with me? I wanted somebody in the car with me. So I left the children with my mother-in-law and Mary. Mary was 12 years old, and I said I was going to look for my father. So we drove to, and then I didn't know where my husband was because he told me to leave and he said he was following us, but he never followed. So I said, I'm going to find my father's body and find my husband. So I drove to my house and I got there. Just before I reached my house was on Sugar Beach Road, going to Sheffling Road, going to the airport. Just before I reached Miss Mary, this lady, she was very wise. She said, let's wait, don't go to the house yet. Let's talk to my friend. And there was a group of small homes before my house. We stopped and she had a friend and she spoke in Basel and the friend was just crying. And I said, what's she talking? She said, she said, don't go to the house. Yesterday, the whole day, they were shooting at your house. They were destroying your house. People were moving things out, and it was full of people, soldiers, everything. Then I said, what? So I turned around. Me and Mary we didn't know where my husband was, and we sure weren't going for my father because I realized I had to now live for my children, so we didn't go. So they destroyed my house that very day. So it was good I left the house, otherwise I would have been destroyed too. So we went, and I was so stunned, I just sat down because I just didn't feel there was nothing I could do. I thought this coup was to just take power and they would take Liberia to the next step. I was very naive. So I was sitting on the Sunday night. There was a lot of shooting at my brother's AB's home. AB's house was not far from my mother-in-law's home. And I didn't sleep for the first 5 days after the coup. So I was awake and I heard all the gunshot and I was praying for AB. So Monday when I got up, my one Mrs. Oshoko, she's a nurse in Bensenville, she came and said, I know her very well, close family friend. She said, they went to pick up AB yesterday, but he disappeared. He escaped. And I was thankful. I said, well, at least they didn't kill him. She said, no, they didn't kill him, but they're coming for you today. And I didn't believe her. I said, why? What did I do? I never worked in the government. I've been working in healthcare. She said, they said they will find you and skin you alive. So that's when I really got scared. My mother-in-law said, you have to go in hiding. I said, why? She said, you have to. I said, but where? So she said, just go to the neighbor and tell them who you are and they will protect you. So I left in faith. To cut it short, these people I didn't know. But they took me in. I was 35 years old then. My angel sent by God, a 17-year-old boy, they call him Duku Boy. He set up a plan. He said, when the soldiers come for you, I'm going to lock you up in a room upstairs. And you stay there until I take you out. I said, what? So then he said, no, you just do that. I said, okay. And there I was, I had to surrender myself. And I did surrender myself. Because then I had nobody but myself and God. And I had the testament, my mother-in-law, just before I left, she said, you take this and it's okay, you'll be okay. And the children will be okay. I said, okay. And I really trusted that I had nothing else, So it wasn't even half an hour after I went to that house. Doe came on to give his message to the nation. And while he was speaking, he said that he took over to help the poor. And it was good that the family heard that. And he was there to take people out of poverty.